Alright, this is section 2.2. Let's talk about some basic functions. Y equals x is a line that shoots up from left to right. The basic behavior of a line is it doesn't have a change in direction. It's straight. Y equals x squared, it has one change in direction. It's called a parabola. Y equals x cubed has two changes in direction to it. Y equals 1 over x, it's called the reciprocal function. It shoots off like this and then down like that. Y equals the square root of x, it shoots off like a fireworks, starts at a certain point and shoots off in one direction. Y equals cube root of x does the same thing, but it goes in both directions. Doesn't have the restriction that you on the domain like the square root does. And then absolute value is the only one that has a sharp edge to it. All the rest of these should be a smooth curve. Don't ever make a sharp edge to any of your graphs unless it's absolute value. So in 2.2 we're going to be graphing functions by first plotting points. Then we're going to use a calculator. And then we're going to do piecewise functions with draw and erase. Okay? We're going to draw a curve. We're going to erase part of it. We're going to draw a curve and erase part of it. Then finally absolute value is basically where it's x if x is positive or 0 and negative x if x is less than 0. So the first thing they say, if f of 4 equals 10, then you know 410 is a point on your graph. And they ask you to match the graph, the function with the graph, so x squared looks like the parabola, x cubed looks like the cubic we saw earlier, square root looks like the square root symbol we saw, and absolute value has that sharp edge to it. Now r of x equals 3x to the fourth. You plug in some numbers. I chose minus 2 to 2, and when you plot it, it looks like a parabola, but it goes up faster than your typical parabola. X equals the negative cube root of x, so you can plug in some values here and you get your y coordinate. Okay, and how would you do something like that? Well, you can do any root you want just by hitting math 5, but first, before you hit math 5, you have to type in the graph, the root you want. So if you hit 3 math 5, it's going to give you the third root. And then you type in x. Now you want a negative out in front, so let's put that there. Okay, and so that's your negative cube root of x. And if you hit a zoom 6, it gives you a standard window from minus 10 to 10. And so you can see what it's doing there. And if you want to know what the table looks like, just hit second window, and you can start your table start at any point you want. Let's say 0, and then the next number typically is a 1, meaning each line is 1 unit apart. Now hit second table, and it gives you your numbers from 0 to 10, and it gives you the y coordinates. Now if you want anything else, you can always arrow up. So there's my minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, 0, all the way to positive 3, and whatever else we want. We graph this. I graphed just a few points there. Absolute value, you can do absolute value by hitting math, arrow to the right, 1. And that gives you absolute value. And we want absolute value of 2x. Okay, so absolute value of 2x looks like this. It's basically the same as absolute value of x, except it goes up twice as fast. Now how do I know what these points are? Second table. There you go. From minus 5 to positive 3, I wrote down all the numbers there. Okay, 34, they ask you to graph this. So we type in x hat 2. Remember, the hat tells you an exponent's coming. If you have an 84, you got to arrow out of the exponent and then subtract 4x, subtract 32. Now, they wanted us to pick certain windows So on this one, we wanted a window from -3 to 3, -5 to 5. So you hit window, and type in -3, enter. Then you type in +3, enter. And then you hit enter to skip the X scale. Y-min, you go -5, enter. Then +5, enter. And then you can skip the X scale, X res, delta X, leave all that alone. So now when you hit graph, it's going to show you a graph from -3 to 3 and -5 to 5. Now notice it's thinking, and when that spinning circle goes away, it's done. Notice it didn't graph anything. So what you do is you draw the grid with nothing on it. Now what about B? B is -10 to 10 in every direction. That's easy. Just hit zoom 6. Now when you do zoom 6, you get this part of the graph, which doesn't show you everything. It cuts off the bottom portion of it. So it looks like this. Now C says try a different window. They say try, so you hit window and type in -7 and +7, each time hitting enter. Skip the X scale by hitting enter again. -30, enter. +5, enter. Now when you hit graph, it's going to look like this. Again, it's close, but again, it's chopping off that little endpoint. You don't see the entire graph. So then finally they pick a window that will work, and they say window, let's see, -6, enter, 10, enter, -40, enter, 5, enter. And when you hit graph, now it shows you a nice curve just like you want it to look like. Okay. 38, they ask you to graph a piecewise function. So again, this is where I tell you draw and erase, draw and erase. What draw and erase does is it allows you to take one portion at a time. If you're trying to keep two things in your head at the same time, it's harder. You make mistakes. So first you say y equals 1. Well, that's just a horizontal line at 1. Okay, so you draw a horizontal line at 1. But you only want 1 or smaller, so you include 1 and everything to the left, but you erase everything that was right over here to the right. That's all erased. Now you draw y equals x plus 1, which looks like this. It crosses at 0, 1, has a slope of 1. Okay, and now we want greater than 1, so here's at 1, we don't include that point, and we shoot off to the right, but we're going to erase all of this that was down here. I didn't draw it there, I had already erased it by the time you see it. And the same thing with each one of these. Y equals x is just the line that goes through the origin right here. But we only want 0 or smaller, so 0 and smaller. So we erase everything over here. Now this is y equals x plus 1, which is a little bit higher. Goes right there. But we only want greater than 0. We don't want this other smaller part, so we erase it. This is y equals 3 minus x. That looks like this. It's basically y equals -1x plus 3, meaning it crosses at 3, has a slope of -1. Now we want -1 or smaller, so we're going to include this left side, and we're going to erase everything to the right. Then 2x squared is a parabola. It goes like this. It goes up twice as fast. But we only want to keep greater than -1. So we erase the portion that was to the left of it. Same thing here. This one's 4 minus x squared, which is this guy here. And we only keep 1 or smaller. We erase the other part. And y equals x minus 5 looks like this guy, and we only keep to the right. We erase everything to the left. And the same thing with 45. You got y equals 4, horizontal line at 4, x squared between -2 and 2, and then minus x plus 6 is this guy, and you only keep greater than 2. '48. Same idea here. You graph this guy on, it looks like this right-handed portion of a parabola. And then you graph this guy, which is a cubic, but you only have a portion of it. And again, you erase the portion you don't need. Okay, and then 49, they give you a graph. You have to look in your ebook and look at question 49. But on the left hand side it shows you a horizontal line at -2. On the far right hand side it shows a horizontal line at +2. And then in the middle it shows you a line of y equals x, so just x. Same thing here. It shows you a horizontal line at 1. On the right it shows you a horizontal line at -2. And in the middle you got a line of y equals 1 minus x. Now here we're talking about, is something a function or not? One way to find out is to draw what's called a vertical line. You draw a vertical line and it's called the vertical line test. If you draw a vertical line and you only hit it once each time, it's a function. So this is a function. It passes the vertical line test. B, this guy is not, because you can draw a vertical line and you hit it twice. C, this one passes. It passes the whole vertical line test. D, this staircase does not. You can draw a vertical line and you hit it more than once, so that's not a function. In 53 and 56 they ask you, is this a function of y? Is this y as a function of x? So they want you to solve this for y. You bring the x squared over, divide by -3. Since you can solve it for y, it is a function. They want you to solve this one for y, so you bring the x squared over, divide by -1, raise everything to the third power, and then yes, y is a function of x. And finally the last one, which is out of order, but it's question 31. They ask you to draw the absolute value of 2x minus 2. And again, you can do that by just hitting under y equals, hit clear. Now you hit math, arrow to the right, 1. That gives you absolute value. And you type 2x subtract 2. And now you probably want a traditional window, so just hit zoom 6. And that gives you this graph right here. If you want to see some individual points, hit second graph or second table. And there you go. And I typed in from -2 to +4. And it gave me that graph right there.